station.
We all had that one teacher who believed in us. Well, you can show your gratitude with Thank a Teacher. It's powered by Donors Choose. If you nominate a public school teacher, you can win $5,000 for their classroom. This week, I want to shout out Tyler Halverson, teaches at Independence Elementary School. Nominate your teacher, iHeartRadio.com/teachers.
All right, we are indeed back, and Chris Madel kind enough to join us in studio. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open at 646-86. It sounded like there were little communication problems getting you up here, but we got you.
We got you.
One way or the other.
We got her.
You got the mics going. That's good, yeah. Thanks for coming in. I know you're under siege right now and done a lot of interviews, and we appreciate you giving us time because it's always better, if possible, in studio, and location, once you know it, is really not that bad for you as well. Where do we begin? I'll start, I guess, this way. You dropped the video, was it yesterday morning?
Yes.
10-ish?
No.
Or earlier?
About 8 a.m.
8 a.m. So that's a day and a half ago. How would you describe the reaction that you have received in one form or another?
So I don't read comments on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it.
God bless you.
Yeah, it's most of that is just nonsense. And so, but I have been literally besieged by emails, and I would say about 99 to 1 thanking me for saying what I said, which is, to me, somewhat embarrassing because it's, what I'm saying is that, I just simply taking a stand and saying that I don't like the idea of retribution on our city. And boy, that's awesome, Madel. Thanks so much for saying, seriously, the bar has been set pretty low that right nowadays for praise of that sort.
And yet, as I'm sure you know, and I've got many texts on this as recently as yesterday when we talked about the video dropping and in your decision, from a lot of people say, what do you mean retribution? That's your opinion. There's really no proof of that. What do you say to those folks who say, no, this is what the president was elected to do. You guys may not like it, and it might get messy, but this isn't retribution. We got to get rid of all these folks.
Well, for me, I'm an attorney. Words matter. The president posted that with respect to Minnesota, this is our day of reckoning and retribution. And he put it in all caps. I tend to believe things that are said, especially when they're backed up with action. And again, I am not sitting here being like, oh my God, this is 100% Trump's problem. This really began by a lack of leadership in Minnesota. This is not happening to other blue states. Other blue states are sitting down with the Trump administration and actually discussing prioritizing the people that they're arresting and going into that. And they're saying, here's a list of the people that we want to get, and they're making state and local resources available with respect to immigration enforcement. We did not do that. We, our elected officials here in Minnesota put their finger in the eye of the president. And we all know what happens when that occurs. And that is just a reality. And I know people on the left are like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to bow down? He is the president of the United States. You have to show some deference. You have to show some respect. And otherwise, you're going to see exactly what we had happen here. But when he then says a reckoning and retribution, and then, in my view, both sides, frankly, kind of behaved a bit like kids. Well, you're going to say that to me. Well, then I'm going to throw more agents at you. And then I'm going to say worse things about you. And then you're going to say worse things about me. And that's exactly what happened. But when the amount of agents then that came in, and with the calls that I had, not only just from clients where they weren't getting people coming to work, United States citizens not coming to work because they were afraid that they were going to be arrested or detained because of the color of their skin. And then when I'm hearing it from law enforcement are getting pulled over on these pretextual stops for speeding. And ICE does not have the authority to pull somebody over for speeding. But these men and women felt that they had to do that because there were emergency lights and they didn't want to cause a situation. It gets to be a Gulliver and the Lilliputians type thing. When you look at it, and then you look at these ICE memos where they can come into your home with a signature of a Border Patrol agent.
Let me stop you at that one right there, because you are an attorney, and you're an accomplished attorney, and you've been in this business for more than 15 minutes. So as far as you understand the law, ICE does not have a legal right to break down a door and just enter in the manner in which they have occasionally done it in this community. Is that correct?
It's 100% correct. I mean, we still have a Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution. It protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. And what it says with respect to an entry to a business, normally called a search warrant, that a neutral judge has to look at that in order to ascertain if there's probable cause to go in. Right now, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, and there was a leaked memo on this, where the head of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement said, all you need is the signature of an authorized agent of ICE, and they can enter. That would count any Border Patrol agent simply signing something and saying that they can go into your house. That is blatantly unconstitutional. And this is exactly the sort, and again, when you look at the patchwork here with respect to everything that is going on, it gets to be a point where you cannot help yourself by trying to juxtapose that next to what the president said and said, this is retribution. This is exactly what this is. And if you want to go back to the beginning again, I will be the first one to agree with you that our leaders failed us in Minnesota, 100%. The reality is you have to deal with the man, and they didn't. And I get that, but that doesn't excuse the conduct of the president and ICE after they refuse to deal with it. Leaders lead. They don't punish their own citizens. And that's exactly what has happened here. And now it looks like they're actually starting to dial it back. Couldn't be more happy about it.
We'll get into that. Is absolute immunity, I think that was the term that the vice president used on occasion. Is that a thing? Does that exist?
It exists in civil cases where if you, Dan Barreiro, want to sue a judge because you think you got a bad decision, they're absolutely immune for that. You are absolutely immune. If you stand up on a witness stand, the only remedy for you cannot sue somebody for their testimony in court. They're absolutely immune. Is there absolute immunity for criminal action? 100% no. 100% no. And this was shown tell anybody of your listeners, go look at the Ruby Ridge case. Which was where the FBI had rules of engagement that said that they could just shoot somebody when they saw them. And that's exactly what happened. That person got charged in a state court. It was removed to federal court. And then there is a procedure that you have to follow to prosecute somebody in a federal court for state crimes. And there's a lengthy decision on that in the Ninth Circuit, which is largely California. But there is no such thing as absolute immunity with respect to federal criminal agents. They can commit crimes. I mean, the notion that they can't is beyond alarming to me.
Well, isn't that self-fulfilling in terms of sending the message to those agents?
100%.
No one can touch us. We can do whatever we want to do. I can't think of a message that is clearer than that offered by the Vice President of the United States.
This is why we started our country. This is exactly what we're talking about with the Boston soldiers coming into your homes, pushing you out of your home so they could stay in your home for as long as they want, taking any property that they wanted because it was the king's edict. This is why we started the United States. So the notion that they can just do this because they work for the federal government, I mean, my gosh, that's exactly why I really believe in the conservative ideals, which I grew up to believe: limited government, not having the government in your business over and over again, and maximizing
conservative
freedom.
ideals.
Yes, maximizing freedom.
Right.
And you do not have maximum freedom when you have law enforcement agents being able to come into your house anytime you want and shoot anybody you want and receive absolute immunity.
So tell me the sequence here. You did the video what morning?
Boy, no, you're already
Sunday
texting
morning?
me. It's been a long week. Yeah, I think it was Sunday morning.
The day after the shooting?
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yes, I believe it was Sunday morning.
Okay. You've said elsewhere and previously, I think, that it just kind of built. It was a combination of things, and it sounds like you were already pretty close to there. Did what you saw on Saturday clinch it? Was that part of it? Were you already there? Where does that factor into the decision you ultimately made? And I guess I should remind folks who haven't paid attention that you released a video saying you were leaving the race to try to get the Republican nomination for to be the next governor of the great state of Minnesota.
And it's been released on X, and I should mention, by the way, it has, I think it's at 3.4 million views, but my daughter has 3.5 million views on a TikTok, and I'm desperately trying to beat her. So
yes,
I'd appreciate anybody, even if you just click on it and you hate my guts, please just click on it just so I can beat my daughter if for any other reason. But it certainly, it was not, I think I pretty well, I was building to this decision. That certainly was a part of it. And it just resigned me to the fact of saying what I said in the video is that I believe that the National Republicans have created such an S show here in Minnesota that it's nearly impossible for a Republican to win right now. It's always uphill for a Republican to win a statewide race. And, you know, that's the reason no Republican has won a statewide race since Pawlenty 20 years ago.
Yes.
I mean, it hasn't happened.
That's right.
And the Attorney General even goes back further than that. But here it kind of got to a point of futility, but it was more important than that to me that when I'm getting all these calls, and I received another call then on Saturday from a law enforcement agent that was just pulled over that day.
This was later in the day after this? Okay.
Yes. And this was an Hispanic, gentleman, decorated cop, pulled over and on a pretextual stop. And it just, I could literally feel my shoulders just drop. And at the end of the day, again, I said this in the video, and I really, your daughter and my daughter go to school together, and I know that I know how much you love your daughter, and it's the same sort of feeling. I got to look them both in the eye and say that I'm doing the right thing here. And it really got hard for me when I was doing a lot of soul searching on that. Can I look them in the eye and say, yep, I'm a member of a party that's going to be exacting retribution on my fellow citizens in Minnesota? And I'm just just not. And that is a bridge too far for me.
Let me read you. I'm going to read you 3 quotes. One from Bovino, one from Nome, and one from Stephen Miller after Saturday. This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. Kristi Nome, this individual committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts. Miller, a domestic terrorist tried to assassinate federal law enforcement. Do any of those quotes fit what you watched via several videos that are now available from Saturday?
Again, as a lawyer, I always think it's important to answer questions. The answer is no. The longer answer is I would just ask everybody just kind of take a step back with respect to what we're hearing here from those 3 people with respect to Second Amendment rights as well. Because again, I count myself as a conservative. I am also a big believer in the Second Amendment. I own firearms. I believe that you have the right to protect your home and to protect your family with firearms. I also believe in Minnesota. If you have the proper conceal and carry permit, you have the right to carry a firearm. And I totally agree with the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus that came out and they tweeted, listen, the fact that this gentleman had a firearm does not give anybody the right to kill him. Just that on its own. If you're pulling that firearm and you're drawing down on a law enforcement officer, yeah, that is an entirely different story. I didn't see that. I did not see that. In fact, I saw them disarm this man before anything happened. Now, you know that I've represented law enforcement with respect to some use of force cases and other critical incidents. I will tell you that as the videos come in and as you actually listen to the officers and you listen to the officers on the scene, you cannot make these sorts of judgments right now by looking and saying, oh my gosh, that's murder or that's obviously a justified use of force. You really need to have that full and fair investigation. That is another problem, by the way, that I have right now that's going on is that nobody is doing any use of force investigations from the FBI. There is no independent investigations of either one of these things, which I would, and I've said this publicly and I've said this privately, that's bad for the officers. That's bad for the officers involved because if what they did was right, having that use of force critical incident review, make it public. Have people poke holes in it. Have people take a look at it. But if the FBI is coming out and saying this was justified, that is going to help the officer. So why would you not do that?
There's no reason to at this point. My understanding is the BCA has been finally allowed back in the area, but God knows what evidence was left at that point. Is there any reason to believe now that the state can, no matter how much in good faith it's acting, properly investigate this thing, given they were not able, as I understand it, were blocked from the area at the time that the shooting took place?
I mean, most of these cases are built on video evidence. Okay. So I think a lot of that is a little hyperbole that I think that a lot of, the politicians, Democratic politicians want to kind of throw out there and troll with respect to the Republicans. So I don't really buy that. That's number one. And number two, and I'll tell you my, existing prejudice with respect to the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. They were the ones that signed under oath the criminal complaint against my client, Ryan Londrigan, for murder, manslaughter, and first-degree felony assault. That was about so many light years away of a crime that when I hear that the BCA is some sort of panacea of independence, they are still a division of the Walz administration that report up to the governor. And so when I hear, my goodness, they're the most independent people around, give me a break. I mean, is
that more them or is that Moriarty?
They signed it under oath. The BCA agents signed it under oath. And unless somebody's going to show me video or Moriarty put a gun to the BCA's head, I got to believe that the BCA did that of their own volition.
Do you believe, and again, this is probably premature, but there's already discussion about it, so we might as well talk about it. There's some who've watched the videos who wonder whether the first gun to go off was the gun involved that belonged to the victim that was pulled off of him, and then that particular agent moved away. Do you have any knowledge or any belief in that? Is there any way to know that at this point?
I have heard the exact same thing, and I have no idea. I do know from the Londrigan case, I engaged this phenomenal video and sound expert guy, and he was from Oklahoma. And it was amazing what he could do by having two different videos and being able to pinpoint exactly when a gunshot occurred, literally down to like a half second. And so all that, I believe, with the amount of video evidence that's out there on this right now, that's going to be able to be ascertained at some point.
This is an ancillary subject, but again, you're a lawyer, so we love good legal advice on this show. And sadly, as you well know, two of the folks we used to lean on are both gone. The late, great Ron Rosenbaum, forever, my good friend, and another good friend, Joe Friedberg. So I'll ask you for your reaction to this. As I understand it, the chief federal judge in Minnesota has ordered the head of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to appear in court on Friday. I'm told that's extremely unusual. Mm-hmm. Is that fair? How did we get exactly to this point, and how will it be resolved?
Well, this, I believe, all relates to this letter that Judge Schultz wrote recently, where they appealed a magistrate judge's decision not to sign certain arrest warrants. It's rumored that one of those arrest warrants was Don Lemon, who used to be on CNN, and it is highly unusual. He wrote in the letter that he had never heard of it. I've certainly never heard of it in 33 years. And then they filed, the Justice Department filed what's referred to as a mandamus petition, which is really a lawsuit against a judge, and where the Justice Department can say, you so abused your discretion, we need to take this up to the Court of Appeals immediately. And it's normally reserved for cases where a judge has just acted like absolute wacky. I mean, and just you've done something really bizarre or nutty. They did this against Pat Schultz, which, again, I laugh a little bit because I can't imagine a more stable and more reasoned jurist than Pat Schultz. And he's a neighbor of ours, by the way. And so I see him frequently at my holiday. And he is just a fantastic judge. He wrote this excellent letter that if I was on the other end of that letter, I would go into my basement and hide for a year. I mean, it was just awful to read. And in that thing, they secretly appealed him, and they put the appellate papers, those mandamus papers, under seal, so he couldn't even see what he was responding to. And then the Eighth Circuit gave him like 2 hours to respond. And so he was writing from home, taking care of what he wrote in his letter, his mentally disabled child. And he said, here I am doing this. No idea what I've been appealed to. I think I have an idea of this. But all I told them, and this was a Friday, I told them I'll get back to them on a Tuesday. Now, they have to do all these sorts of things. Arrest warrants, just like what I was talking about earlier with respect to search warrants, all those have to be signed by an officer under oath. And I think, and I don't know this, but I think he has a problem with what they've written under oath.
Yes.
And now he wants the boss to come in. Is that unusual? 100%. I've had cases, civil cases, where judges, I had one case where I represented a very large fast food chain that you all know, but a Hennepin County judge ordered the CEO to come in because he wouldn't settle a case for $5,000 when the original amount was $50 million. And he refused. And she wanted to see him in person. And he came in and looked her in the eye and said, here's why I'm not settling for $5,000. And we settled it for $0. So joke was on her. I thought it was a good idea to settle for $5,000. But do they have the authority to do that? 100%. He can do that. It's great theater. And especially right now with everything that's going on right now, I wonder if they're going to take the foot off the gas and try to moot it so he doesn't have to come back into town.
All right, let's make this the bottom of the hour pause. I got a lot more to talk about. We've got Chris Madel in studio for the hour. Good texts continue to come in, and we'll continue this conversation in just a minute here in the Fan.
Bonus Box is back on KFAN. We have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. It's every hour from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. The keyword this hour, by the way, is dollar. Keyword dollar, KFAN.com, keyword dollar. Enter the keywords and learn more, KFAN.com.
Chris Madel is our in-studio guest. Let's get to it. Are you basically a wolf? No. What's the cliche? Are you a closet Democrat pretending to be a Republican? Because I got a lot of that yesterday. I'm sure you get it from time to time, that it's like the Trojan horse thing, and you're not kidding me. You're not fooling me. You've donated money to Democrats from time to time. You ain't no Republican.
Yeah. I've given to Republicans and Democrats over the years. I was born and raised, my dad was county chairman of the Republican Party. The first book that he used to kind of shove down our throats was Barry Goldwater's Conscience of a Conservative. I feel like over the years that the party has kind of come and gone to where I am. And I still feel like that now at times. And I do. There is a small vocal minority of the Republican Party that does this purity test on every issue. And if you don't hit every issue, then therefore you are somehow this horrible, wolf in sheep's clothing. And, and again, just they I quote Jay-Z, they talk, we do, who cares what they say? And I really believe in that. And all you can do is just kind of put the noise aside and just say what you believe. And I've said what I believe. Boy, if I was this Democrat in sheep's clothing, I did pretty damn well in that Republican process, didn't I?
Well, I think right now it's for people who do not like what you've said and the reasons you've given. Yeah. They're looking for ways to dismiss it. Sure. And so it's easier to dismiss it, which, of course, leaves aside that, as you and I have talked about before, on air and off air, the great irony of this is, and this to me should lend credibility to what you have said when you announced you were stepping aside, is that you're not exactly Keith Ellison's, Mary Moriarty's, even Governor Walz's best friend.
Oh, I mean, I take great pride in the fact that I believe that I am the reason that Mary Moriarty didn't run for re-election, and because of what we did to her on the Londrigan case. And I feel like I have made Hennepin County 100 times safer for all of us by doing that. And I've represented law enforcement over again. I've represented Alpha News. I've represented the Center for the American Experiment. I've done all this, but yet, I'm the Democrat in sheep's clothing. And again, I keep coming back to Jay-Z. I mean, all these people that say this, what have they done? I mean, what have they actually done in order to move forward conservative issues with respect to anything that really has happened in Minnesota? I can tell you that I stood up on behalf of a law enforcement officer at the very beginning of this case and said that open season on law enforcement is going to end, and it's going to end with this case. That was after all the Chauvin. That was after all the Potter stuff. The people that were criticizing me the most for saying that, Republicans. You went too far, Madel. You went too far. But again, what can I do? It's like I'm not going to go out to these people and say, hey, listen, can I sit in your basement and tell you how much I loved what Rush Limbaugh said? And it just doesn't matter. All I can say is what I believe, and I believe what I say.
Do you believe we are seeing a sizable shift, not just in rhetoric, but in where this is going to go? I mean, because a part of me wants to believe it, but I also need to see the details. I need to see more than words how it plays out on the ground. Are you sensing that there is serious momentum that indicates there's a way out of this abyss or not?
Yeah, I actually do. I think that Holman coming in right now, and he was given the Medal of Freedom from Obama, and he's he was in competition with Kristi Noem to be the Secretary of Homeland Security. But honestly, I think everything that I have seen with respect to, he's absolutely a hardliner with respect to immigration, but he's smart and he actually knows how to negotiate. Bovino was very similar to some of the other people from DC, where I felt like all he did is specialized in putting a finger in your eye. And he was not really interested in actually achieving things, as opposed as much as he was kind of creating this hostile atmosphere so everybody would be as divisive as possible. I'm very encouraged. Jacob Fry said it. I don't exactly like using that as a source, but he said that there's going to be 500 ICE agents leaving the state, which I think is a step in the right direction. I also think another important step in the right direction is if he would tell the Minneapolis police, it is fine for you to protect your brothers and sisters in law enforcement. That is not a big ask. And honestly, this is one of the things I said in my video. I feel so sorry for the Minneapolis Police Department right now. These are brave men and women that are out there protecting us. And right now they're being told to stand down with respect to any problems with their brothers and sisters in law enforcement. That is wrong. It does not matter what side of the political aisle you are on. If law enforcement's being attacked by anybody, they need to be able to protect one another. That is not a big ask. And when I hear people on the left saying, oh my God, that's awful and it's great that Minneapolis police are being sidelined like this, really? I mean, go look at downtown. Go look at South Minneapolis. Go look at the crime. I've got friends that live in between Lake of the Isles and Hennepin Avenue. There's entire blocks there where they've had cars broken into and stolen repeatedly, which has gone way up. If you look at Crime Watch Minneapolis, which is one of my favorite sites on X, if you look at that, it's gone way up throughout this process, vehicle thefts. And nobody's really paying attention to any of this stuff. So we need to do more with respect to supporting our law enforcement. And we really... The current administration, from Walz to Ellison to Moriarty, have really done practically nothing in order to make our streets safer.
Tim Pawlenty, in an interview, this might have been this morning, a national interview, you mentioned him earlier, suggests that, and he's been pretty critical of the ICE tactics, but he's also said that if we're, again, trying to be real about how we get out of this, that moving forward, we have to have agreement that, to your point, local police, in this case Minneapolis police, create basically buffer zones where inside of that, whatever the activity that ICE is doing, is that there is some protection, because his belief is when it's face-to-face, confrontation, that it's almost inevitable that something else bad is going to happen again. Is he right? Is that realistic? Is that too much Is the city giving up too much in that regard?
Yeah, he's 100% right. And let me just kind of expound a little bit on that. So right now, the Minneapolis Police Department, as a result of all the Floyd stuff, is operating under a consent decree. And if you read that consent decree, and I'm summarizing, I'm making this a lot easier here, but it more or less lets protesters get up in cops' face. And that's what these Minneapolis protesters have gotten really kind of accustomed to. These agents that are coming in from out of town, a lot of them are from Texas, a lot of them are from other places. They are not working under this consent decree. So when they see somebody kind of come up in their face, they shove back. And then what a lot of these protesters are been accustomed to yelling at the cops, getting up in there, you're like, you can't do that. And they're right under the consent decree. But that consent decree doesn't apply to federal people. So you have this disconnect in what rules of engagement, for lack of a better term, kind of apply between Minneapolis police and federal law enforcement. So creating that buffer zone would be immensely more helpful. I also would say, though, too, that with respect to back to the priorities, I just don't know of a reasonable person in the state that would have a problem with going after the worst of these worst. And I've talked about a couple of them. There's this one person, just permit me on this. He had an order for removal on Halloween of 2000. He was convicted in California about having sexual intercourse with a girl that was 13 to 16 years old. He then moved to Minnesota. In 2010, he bit his girlfriend's cheek so hard she had a flap of skin hanging from her. He was convicted of first-degree felony assault. He appealed that to the Court of Appeals. There's a decision from the Court of Appeals in 2011. The first time that he was arrested for deportation, December 2025. 14 years after that, much more time after the California conviction. Show me the person that wants this person here in the United States. And I would even think the people on the far left would think, yeah, that's a good person that we should have gone. If we can make a list of those people and have an agreed upon list, have state law enforcement, have local law enforcement, work with immigration, arrest these people, deport them. They should have been deported a lot earlier for reasons I don't know why they weren't. I have no idea. But let's get rid of them. But when we're talking about having lunch at a Mexican restaurant, and then going back into the Mexican restaurant and arresting and deporting the people that just cooked your food, it's not,
that's not precision policing.
And Dan, you and I are neighbors. We see, if you had a problem at your house and you needed help, I'd come over and help you. That's what Minnesotans do. We are very, very friendly people. We try to help our neighbors. And when we hear something like that, that offends us as Minnesotans. And especially when you import thousands of people to come in that are doing that to a highly charged atmosphere like that, on top of stories of people getting detained and pulled over because of the color of their skin, at some point you got to say, hey, listen, this is wrong. We got to stand up and say that this is wrong. And if you're not doing that, in my world at least, with my morality and with my spirituality, you are offending what is the kind of a norm with respect to morality. And I do believe that we are a brother's keeper, and I do believe a number of times when I hear people say, well, we got to round all these people up and deport them all, and then I'm going to go to church on Sunday and read the Bible. I'm like, I think you're not reading the Bible hard enough, friend.
Precision. Because for me, if I'm representing the mayor or the governor, I'm saying, all right, on this idea of creating these perimeters, I can't consider that unless I can trust that what's happening inside that perimeter is, as you say, a precise, targeted individual of the type that you're saying.
Yes.
Not that while you're in that perimeter, you're grabbing people and saying, your accent sounds kind of funny to me. Let me see your papers.
Yes.
That's got to be a part of the agreement, or else it doesn't even have a chance.
100%. Yes. I mean, and how sad is it? And I keep kind of having this cognitive dissonance from time to time. How sad is it that we're having this conversation? This is the United States of America. I mean, we are a nation of immigrants. This is not what any of us wanted to sign up for, but this notion that we're just rounding people up and there's no doubt that you believe that's been taking place, correct? I know that it's taken place.
Exactly.
I have talking to clients. I have talking to individuals. I've talking to law enforcement. I know that this is taking place. We have gotten so far beyond from the idea where we are not just agreeing on fact anymore. That you're reading your, Mother Jones and I'm reading my Alpha News and we're not getting in the middle and just saying, hey, listen, this is reality.
Right.
And so I know that this is happening, and that's one of the reasons that led to my decision.
All right, one more break, and we'll continue. Chris Madel, kind enough to join us in studio. Outstanding guest, I should say, outstanding guest for sure, but also lots of good texts. I'm going to try to include those. I got a couple things I want to run by you from an op-ed piece that Governor Walz wrote in today's Wall Street Journal as well to get your reaction to. You may have some information, some knowledge in some areas on this as well. We'll continue in just a minute.
The one and only Monster Jam rolls back in the U.S. Bank Stadium February 7th and 8th. We've got your tickets in. Check out the contest page, KFAN.com. Keyword contest. See how you could win a family 4-pack of tickets to the February 7th show. KFAN.com. Keyword contest.
Tim Walz op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal. It's online right now. The Un-American Assault on Minnesota. I want to run a couple of items by our in-studio guest, Chris Madel. Let me read you. The administration claims that Minnesota jails release the worst of the worst. In reality, the Minnesota Department of Corrections honors all federal and local detainers by notifying Immigration and Customs Enforcement when a person committed to its custody is not a U.S. citizen. There is not a single documented case of the department's releasing someone from state prison without offering to ensure a smooth transfer of custody. Do you know whether that's true?
I believe it's true. And they're obligated to do that under federal law. And this is one of the areas where I think when Vice President Vance came here, he actually said, yeah, I wouldn't put them on the list of the problem people.
And yet, others in the administration have said, well, if they would just do that, we'd be out of here.
Yep.
Another comment. Some of the administration's claims are ridiculous on their face. For example, it claims that 1,360 non-U.S. citizens are in Minnesota prisons. The truth, our total state prison population is roughly 8,000, and only 207 of them are non-citizens.
Yeah, I have no idea.
You have no idea on that one. I'll give you one other one that I found interesting. Earlier in the month, the administration had published what it claimed was a list of people who had been arrested as part of this ICE sweep, asserting that this list represents, quote, the worst of the worst criminals, and implying that we've been protecting them from capture. He writes that Minnesota Public Radio investigated the claim, saying most of the people on the list had been immediately transferred to ICE custody at the end of time served in Minnesota prisons. All of those transfers happened before ICE even began its surge of operations in Minnesota on December 1, 2025, with some even happening years before. Do you have any knowledge on that?
I have no idea.
So it's hard to say for you on that part of it.
Yep. I will. Can I say one thing?
Yes.
Is that so? Walz starting that by saying the un-American blah 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 blah. With respect, I'm like, dude, look in the mirror. Okay, you are the one referring to ICE agents back during the University of Minnesota graduation as Trump's modern day Gestapo. You were the one referring to people that supported Trump as Nazis, which literally about half of our state right now voted for Trump in the last election. That is un-American. That is un-American to be comparing people to a party that engaged in one of the history's worst atrocities out there, and then inflaming all that and then retreating back to your defense and calling him un-American. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a bunch of children. This is not being a leader. Leaders lead. They do not go in there and point fingers at you and say, you're not an American. You're awful. You're a Nazi. You're a Gestapo. They don't do that. They say they're measured and they say, listen, let's let all the facts come in. And then they get on the phone like, frankly, Gretchen Whitmer did with respect to Michigan. And they say, tell me your priorities. What are you actually wanting to accomplish here? And then you look at a list and you say, hey, listen, here's a number of people that from Southeast Asia, one of whom bit somebody's cheek so hard there's a flap. Yeah, let's get rid of that person. Why why do we need to do all of this stuff? Why are we the only state where this is happening? That is a crisis of leadership. So my respectful suggestion to the governor, put down your laptop, do your job, and actually communicate right now. Try to de-escalate things. Try to not inflame. Try to actually lead and get us out of this.
Text that came in earlier. This is from the 701 area code. Your guest claims that Minnesota handled the influx of federal agents, ICE, BP, by not coordinating their efforts. I don't recall there being any requests by ICE or BP of Minnesota law enforcement, e.g. Governor Pritzker, Illinois, absolutely laid down the law and said no way, no how. There was no effort between federal and state to cooperate because the federal effort was regarded as bullying and was, as it is, here in Minnesota. Yeah. What do you say to that?
Give me a break. I mean, when the federal government comes in, they almost always, their first call is to local authorities. I know, because I know a lot of Minneapolis police officers. There have been outreaches. There have been, the Minneapolis Police Department rank and file wants to actually protect other law enforcement. And again, this is not a big ask. And what are we saying now? Okay, geez, I don't have evidence that there was a phone call, so therefore all of this is fine? I mean, give me a break.
Lots of texts wondering why you weren't running as an independent from the start and why you still wouldn't.
Well, if Elon Musk is listening and he wants to give me $10 to $20 million to put the campaign together, I will be right back on the campaign trail tomorrow. There would be nothing that I would love more than to run as an independent candidate and run on my own beliefs and all that. I would love to do that. The problem with politics, you got to have money, and the machine has that money. And
you raised a pretty good chunk in a short period of time, did you not?
1 month I raised over $400,000. Yeah. So no, I was.
But that's not close to what you need.
From what everybody tells me through the entire process, you're talking over $10 million.
Could you? We all assume Amy Klobuchar is getting in the race.
Yes.
I consider her, this is just analytic speaking, not necessarily taking a position, that she's unbeatable.
So here's my argument as to why that's not true. Look at the sequence of events. Who did Walz meet with immediately before he said that he wasn't going to run with? He met with Amy Klobuchar. The question I would ask to the people that were inclined to vote for her, if you're really truly interested in fraud, do you think with that sort of a relationship that if she became governor, that you're going to learn about what did the governor and his administration know about fraud and when did they know it? It's not going to happen.
She's a pretty good prosecutor.
She was a regulatory lawyer, Dorsey and Whitney. She's never tried a case, Dan. I mean, yes, she was a head county attorney, and she was also the head county attorney when she prosecuted Kirby Puckett. How did that go for you? I was on that case.
What case weren't you on?
Well,
honestly,
the ones that Joe was on. But also with respect to Senator Klobuchar, I think it's really important for people who want to achieve office in the state, particularly statewide office, and this is frankly rare, that people that want to run for it, you should actually your desire should be to I want to help people. I want to actually fix problems. I actually want to make things better. It's not that I'd really like to see myself, people call me governor or that sort of deal. And there are people in this race right now that I believe that to be the case. I believe that she's not running here to really fix problems. She's running here to get executive experience to run as president of the United States again. It's a stepping stone. We are in such a bad strait right now with respect to Minnesota. And when I talk about that, I talk about fraud. I talk about safe streets. I talk about education. I talk about affordability. I talk about the budget. We have numerous different areas right now that need serious attention. And, I always hate it when people are always saying, oh, this is the most important election of our lifetime. I actually believe that with respect to Minnesota right now. I think that we're at a real crossroads. When Mississippi is bidding us on 4th grade literacy, Mississippi, and they're 1/3 cheaper than we are in dollars per pupil, and we're being led by a teacher. We are in some really bad straits right now. And so we need to have somebody in there that actually wants to correct things rather than looking at that office as a stepping stone.
What was the message you derived out of several attorneys prosecutors, including U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson, whatever title he had at that point.
He was first assistant,
yep. Stepping away.
So Joe's a good friend of mine, and we just had lunch again last week.
Can you get him on? We want to have him on. He won't come on.
I'll talk to you about that when we get off the show.
Okay.
Joe is about as honorable of a prosecutor as I have known in my career. And I had a number of cases against him, and I had one, and I hope he's listening, where he indicted my client, then he gave him an immunity from prosecution, and he walked away. So, Joe, thank you very much for doing that, and I beat you on that case too. But that's an aside. Joe is again, he with one FBI analyst started feeding our future, and if there is one person that has really started the ball rolling with respect to fraud in Minnesota, it's Joe Thompson. And now I can see a lot of people now coming in from Washington, D.C. and using his resume to say, look at all the stuff I've done with respect to fraud. I happen to know that it's Joe Thompson, and he's been there over and over. The fact that he resigned that was certainly another log on my fire of my decision to get out of this race. The fact that Joe Thompson and now 10 federal prosecutors that have resigned, and including a senior FBI agent that have resigned, that should cause all of us, Democrat, Republican, put all that garbage aside. That should cause all of us as American citizens to sit up and take notice. There is something seriously wrong right now with respect to what is happening with respect to our judicial system and our law enforcement at the federal level in Minnesota.
The great irony to me is if you do want to make this partisan and you're a hardcore righty, you should be devastated that he's out, because if you believe that the Feeding Our Future and other scandals provide red meat to you, you have removed the, as you say, single individual, most responsible, knows that landscape better than anybody, and that can't just be learned in 15 minutes by people coming in from Washington.
Again, I'll be honest with you about my behind-the-scenes thing when I was a candidate. As all that fraud stuff was coming out, I was calling top Republicans in the state and asking D.C., take your foot off the gas of Walz. Take your foot off the gas of this guy. He is going to resign, and you're reaching a crescendo way too early. Push this into July, August, September, then bring it up. That's the best political move.
That would have been the best strategy.
And it obviously, and now what did you get? Now, I mean, and again, look at this from my candidacy standpoint. You pushed fraud too fast. Then you came in here with ICE. Created that unmitigated disaster here and I don't think anybody can reasonably quarrel with that. And then you brought in Amy Klobuchar to run as governor. Boy, you did a great job, Republicans. You banged it up. You just did a fantastic work here. I mean, strategically, that is just infinitesimally stupid.
Last item, we could go all day, but I know you got other things to do, and eventually we have to break again. If, for whatever reason, you got a phone call tonight from the President of the United States who said, I'm trying to figure this thing out. I don't know how it got pear-shaped, although it might not help when you send out a tweet, as you mentioned earlier, fear not, great people of Minnesota, the day of reckoning and retribution is coming. That's why it's hard for me to just put this all on Bavino and Nolan Miller, because they were doing exactly what they thought the president wanted them to do. True. But if he called you and said, all right, give me some advice here, what would your advice be to the president?
It couldn't just be to the president, and I hate to give you the lawyer answer. The thing I would like to do is, but it sounds like they're starting to do it, by the way, and I want to give them credit where credit's due. I would want to get Walz, the president, and Jacob Fry into a room and say, what is it that we want to accomplish? Just like any mediator in any case would do. What are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to settle a lawsuit, or what are we trying to do? And then figure out that goal, and then figure out the means to get that goal achieved. With respect to the president right now, and again, this is one of the problems, again, I just have so much with Walz and Fry. We all knew how he was going to react if you put a finger in his eye.
Right.
I mean, how many people have done that? Has it ever worked? And again, it's Einstein's definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. They just didn't. But I would tell the president to do exactly what he's doing right now. Tom Homan is a lot better choice. He is a grown-up. I'm so I am very happy that he's now coming into Minnesota in order to manage this mess. And hopefully now there's going to be some de-escalation. Hopefully there's going to be some prioritization regarding the people that they're going to arrest and deport. And hopefully it's going to now start leading down to a manageable level again, where we're not talking about this on a day-by-day basis.
All right, I want to get a couple more quick texts in. You got nowhere to go, right?
Mm-mm.
You don't have, well, maybe you do. I'm getting a grin.
No, I'm
here.
fine.
You're
I'm
okay?
fine.
You
I'm
sure?
fine.
All right,
I'm fine.
Want to be sure. Let me get to a couple more texts. Hold on. Let me scroll down. They're coming in fast and furious. Please ask your guest what Republicans like Tom Emmer and others are doing. It's a good question. They're just playing the Sharks and Jets game, right? I can't give any sustenance to the enemy, so I'm going to pretend I'm going to stick my head in the sand.
And with respect to the Congress people in the state too, that I think that it's incumbent upon literally every leader to get yourself in the middle of things in order to try to de-escalate things for the entire state. You know, you could make a reasonable argument if you're Pete Stauber and you're up in Duluth, is that this is not really my problem so much. It's not really happening so much on there. This is more of a Minneapolis problem, and I want to keep my nose out of it. And I understand that. I just think it reached such a crescendo that I think all leaders have an obligation to kind of put their nose in. Listen, as a candidate, I tried to put my nose into it. I contacted people and started suggesting various stuff. I really believe, and I've said this openly to numerous people in Immigration Customs Enforcement, do a use of force investigation on these officers. You know, it is just a bunch of pluses across the board for everyone, including the officers involved. But have somebody with some credibility look at these situations and publicize it. So, you know, so we're not sitting here with people, frankly, like me, armchair quarterbacking this.
Your guest seems to ignore how Trump acts, meanwhile slamming walls for unprofessional language.
Yeah.
How about we talk about actions? How about we don't ignore the context of how Republicans have acted since the president emboldened them to act like horrendous people?
Respectfully, was your guest listening to me when I said that they're all acting like children? I mean, you know, that includes everybody from Washington, D.C., and that includes all the leaders from Minnesota. So, again, this is like people criticizing my video when I left, and they're saying, well, you never said anything about representing anybody. I'm like, you didn't watch the video. So, you know, respectfully, again, listen to what I'm saying before you're going to criticize me.
Well, you know the mistake of the video. Wasn't it 10 minutes?
It's 10 minutes,
We don't have that kind of attention span. Come on, man.
Believe me, that was the first thing I thought.
It needed to be a 30-second video.
That's the first
We can't hang in that long. Are you kidding?
100% true criticism.
Trying to do some nuance in that thing?
You're 100% right.
You're crazy.
I have no defense.
Last two texts. Not sure who this dude is, but he's very articulate in his beliefs. Refreshing.
I got that a lot on the campaign trail, by the way. It's like, who are you?
Yeah, who are you? Yeah. Need to have Chris on weekly. Great guest. Well, you don't have anything else to do now, correct?
No, I got time.
You got no cases.
And I got time, and we live by each other.
That's very true. It should be very, very easy.
You can set up a studio in my office.
Great hour. I really appreciate the time.
I love you, Dan.
And thanks again for the visit, and we'll definitely try to keep in touch. Thanks.
Sounds great.
Chris Madel. I almost did it again. I don't know why. Occasionally, I
you know, with
trigger into Madel.
You can call me anything, including those words you call me off the air.
Well, that's true. And because it took me 12 years to pronounce my own name. Barreiro is not an easy one to figure out when you're a kid. Very late. We'll get to the top of the hour break and maybe have about a 2-minute top 5 at 5. Lou Nanny will join at 5.